Hey guys, this is Reuben, and I really wanted to talk to you guys about a really important decision that is coming in September, which is, just a bit more than a month away, right? It's 19th of August at the time of recording, and this change is going to happen at the end of September. And what's happening is that basically we're approaching our second halving, and there are certain decisions that need to be made on the future of Firo. So let's kind of like talk through them. And we've actually been having these discussions on our forums. If you haven't done so, please go and register at forum.firo.org. So, it's where all the important discussions are happening. There's also like a neat feature, like for example, if you don't speak English, we recognize that, there are people that are from the Chinese community, the Turkish community, and the Arab community, and you can actually click on this. Like for example, I don't speak Arab, and when you click in it, it actually translates it to your own native language. So really helpful. I hope this encourages people to weigh in your opinions regardless what there is. But let's kind of dive into what the decisions that need to be made. And we've opened this thread in like 21st of June or so, right? And we basically had three different polls, which was, should Firo continue its development fund and community fund? The second one is, should Firo have a tail emission? And should Firo keep its halving schedule, or should we revisit our emission curve? So let's just quickly go through one by one, what does this all mean, right? And I think the first one is, I guess, the most easy to understand one is, should Firo continue its development fund and community fund? And if you don't know, Firo is currently funded through a combination of donations and also part of the block reward. So what is the block reward? So you know how in Bitcoin, where you mine coins and new coins come into being, that goes 100% to the miners, including fees. In Firo, it's divided between miners, masternodes, and a development fund, which goes towards the core team, and a community fund that is run by a community elected committee, and they can spend it on what they feel is correct. And you can also apply for funding for various things. They've also supported the core team when we were short of money or that we needed to do things, but they are totally independent from us in the sense that no core team members can be part of this community fund committee. And the core team doesn't have a vote in it. We can give advice and recommend, but at the end of the day, it's only advisory, right? So obviously there's kind of pros and cons between having a development fund. Obviously with a development fund, we can have full-time core team developers, people like myself, dedicating our time full-time towards the project and having kind of like, stability, right? Versus like if it's a donation base, it's hard to say that, if you have a family and whatnot, you have a job, it's like, oh yeah, I contribute my time here, but I can't dedicate my full time because I don't really know, like, you just don't have a stable income, right? So a development fund allows us, the core team, to continue operating full time, working on all these new advancements and developments, like for example, the latest Spark assets and all these things we want to do. But it also comes with some drawbacks, right? And the big question is that, should Firo's development kind of like just be done by volunteers, meaning that people want to develop it, they are funded by donations or done in their spare time, which means that, I would say development happens more slowly, maybe less directed, but it's also more decentralized and is in a way harder to stop, right? So it's kind of pros and cons. So I guess the question you have to ask is that, do you think Firo, if the core team steps away, is that a good thing or a bad thing? That means there's no team that's talking to the exchanges and all of this. I personally think we are not there yet. I do on honestly, I do want like the development fund to eventually end, but we will kind of want to make sure that Firo is in a good state before we, kind of leave it into maintenance mode, right? And I don't think we've reached that stage yet. Though it's actually a fully functioning privacy coin now, right? So that's a really important thing. So the other thing is that should we have a community fund, right? And the community fund, as I mentioned, is this independent fund that receives some money from the block reward, and there is a committee that decides how this should be allocated. Now, there are ways to kind of apply for funding right now. Of course, the community fund can independently say, yeah, let's do this, but it also relies on people posting funding requests, right? So you see there's people posting, let's have some funding for a Firo Guardians program, let's have some funding for Campfire, our wallet, or the core team's also asking for help there, or even graphic services, or like maintenance of a tip bot. So anyone can create a proposal here. Now, obviously, at the moment, because Firo's price isn't that high yet, a lot of it has gone towards helping the core team carry out its duties. And obviously, this is not an ideal situation. So some people are like, well, what's the point of the core? What is the point of having a community fund if they aren't that active? If it's used to help the development fund, shouldn't it just then be made simpler and go all towards the development fund? That is, I think, I guess, a valid observation. But at the same time, it may not be always the case, right? Maybe Firo's price goes up to a really high place, and the development fund is sufficient for the core team to operate and do it without any sort of assistance from the community fund. And I feel that we've already set up this kind of infrastructure that the community can start participating and choosing what to fund things. And the good thing is that one day when the core team is no longer, there's no longer a development fund, the community fund can then step in to take over this thing. So this is kind of like, this is my own personal opinion. It's good to have it there so that we are slowly decentralizing, and that when core team finally steps away, when Firo's in a great position, there is infrastructure to actually continue the governance and funding of various good tasks. So yeah, I guess this is why I personally voted to keep both the development fund and community fund. But obviously there are downsides in the sense that, it's not as decentralized. There is still a core team to go after, but we have taken mitigations in the sense that even if, core team stops operating today, every single part of our code is open source. It's already out there, and we can't stop it, right? So it's already in a great state. The wallets work, sending, receiving. We have DEXs, we have, good centralized exchange listings. So even if we step away today, it would not be ideal, but Firo will still continue to survive. So this is kind of like the pros and cons. So yeah, that's the first topic. Now, the other topic, which is the second question, is should Firo have a tail emission, right? So Firo was designed to be like Bitcoin, which is why we have an almost like a 21 million, or here in this case 21.4 million max supply, right? So it kind of mimics Bitcoin. That means it's fixed. And what that means is that at the end of, once the last Firo is mined, that's it. And, everything is just done using transaction fees, right? Bitcoin hasn't reached there. We don't really know how sustainable that model is, despite there being many studies that actually say that it's not sustainable. So one of the ways to mitigate this is to have a small little tail emission, which we are proposing at 1 Firo per block. For the rest of time, right? And what that means is that at 1 Firo per block, you're gonna have about about like 1% plus inflation every month. And obviously, as time goes on, this rate keeps on dropping because it's a fixed emission all the time. Now, there's really strong arguments to have a tail emission, meaning that, there will always be some incentives to keep the chain moving and to secure the chain. And there is a stable base to work from. Like Bitcoin, it still has a block reward. It hasn't reached a tail emission yet. Without a tail emission, it means that only transaction fees are the things that are rewarded to miners, and that actually is quite scary. It means that when not many people are using the chain, the security actually drops, and that when there are people using the chain, the security then goes up. That means you have a varying level of security, and there's also this worry that it may lead to like a negative spiral, which I wouldn't go too much into this particular video, but it's a well-known thing called the tragedy of the commons. So I actually personally think that having a tail emission makes sense, but of course there are those that speak very strongly in our forums, which we don't censor anything. You can see how everyone is responding to it, that believe that no, there should be a fixed supply, and there's no, if you have a tail emission, you are inflationary and whatnot, which I don't think that's the case. The case is that Bitcoin was designed as an answer to arbitrary increases. That means like the central bank just choosing to print money. Firo cannot do that. We have to get community support, right? And if we have if we agree it up front, maybe we don't have to ever change it anymore, right? And this is like for the long-term sustainability of Firo, and one that Monero has implemented. Even Ethereum has some sort of tail emission. It's, to me, a better model, and the only reason why people aren't discussing it now is that Bitcoin's price has continued to go up, and they haven't hit the tail emission yet. I mean, there's still like a couple of million a couple more Bitcoin to mine, right? So yeah, this is the pros and cons. The pros is that you have stable security. There is there's this base level of security that will always happen. It's a very small fixed rate of inflation. It's actually lower than gold. So, people always say like, oh yeah, gold, we want to be like gold. Gold actually has a 1.5 to 2% inflation because you extract the gold from the ground and it's been stable around there. And here what we're proposing is about 1%, which is lower than gold. Right, and it's not. We should just. To me, we shouldn't be like, oh my god, 1% inflation is inflation. No, I think there's a lot of good arguments to have a small amount of inflation to keep things moving. So yeah, that's the pros and cons for that. I hope everyone understands it, and if you can read all the arguments here. Some people are against it. Some people are for it. Just have a look there. The final thing that we have to kind of decide is, should we be following the current Bitcoin halving schedule, right? Which we are at the moment. That means like every 4 years, the new supply that goes into the block reward is halved. There are some arguments that whether this is actually, besides Bitcoin, we haven't actually seen any coin that has followed this schedule that has done particularly well, mainly because Bitcoin existed on its own, right? And you needed that kind of initial, there was like no exchanges. There was, the only way to get Bitcoin was to mine it, and to actually, the only way to get Bitcoin is to mine it or get someone to pay you in it and whatnot, right? So there were no developed exchanges. There were not many marketplaces for people to buy and sell. So therefore, having like this very long emission kind of makes sense, whereby, nowadays, coins get listed. You can have them on the DEX almost immediately, so that you have access to to that if you want to buy Bitcoin, you want to buy Firo, you can do it through many different ways. You're not like, restricted to mining it or getting it from someone else. There's many developed marketplaces. And it's also an argument to say whether, the abrupt, like 4 years, let's halve it, versus like a more steady reduction of the supply is a good thing, right? And if you take a look, like most projects today actually have very front-loaded emissions, which means that most of the coins are emitted, like, for example, in Monero, I think it's like more than 50-60% of the supply was emitted in the first 2 years, right? Many other successful projects have a very fast emission in the beginning, like in the first couple of years, which heavily rewards early adopters, while those that implement more fair mechanisms where the coins are released over like a really long time, like for example Grin, right? It has a fixed emission, like I don't know what's the exact amount, but it doesn't reward early adopters. It's totally fair. That means whether you get in now or later, it's the same rate of emission all the time. Now there's been a few proposals. Some are saying, okay, let's keep the current emission of 6.25 Firo until the end of the emission and then go into a tail emission, or should we still just stick to the halving, or should we have more gradual reductions? That means instead of halving 50% after like at this one abrupt point, maybe every year is reduced by 15% or something like that, to kind of like smooth the curve out. Because if you see Bitcoin is like, oh yeah, emission, and then drops, right? So there is like a shock. So there's been votes about how to kind of do this, right? And obviously these are all these original polls were kind of preliminary sentiment polls, and because these questions are quite intertwined, right? It made more sense to have a final poll to kind of make sure that everyone, first of all, had all the options that they want to, without having like 20-30 different options to vote for, but at the same time, everyone's voice is being heard. So this is the final poll, which has been posted 12 days ago, and we translated it to English, Chinese, Turkish, and Arabic. For that's where we think the most of our community is, and we've done instead of a simple like, oh yes or no, or select one option, that isn't a very fair way to do things, in the sense that you cannot express your preference, right? So maybe like, yes, you have a preference, but you actually don't mind option number 2 and option number 3. If you only could choose one, those opinions aren't reflected, which is why we actually have implemented something called rank voting. And rank voting allows you to vote how you want to like put priority, right? So for example, these are my personal votes, which I mean, you don't have to follow, but I'm just showing it to you guys. So I can choose that, my number one choice is that I want to have 70% masternode, 5% miners, 15% developer, and 10% community. This is my number one choice, and this is my second choice, right? And I can choose to continue ranking them to 3, 4, 5, but I can also choose to abstain and say like, I don't like these options at all. I don't even like them. So I'm just going to put abstain and just keep these two as my preferred choices. But if I'm still okay with it, I can choose rank 3, rank 4, rank 5. So the idea is that you only pick the ones that you want, that you actually want to see in, and if you're like okay with it, you can rank it 1, you can rank it 2, but for options that you totally don't want, you can just put an abstain to the end. That will be all reflected. Now, so there are 2 polls here, which is what would Firo's block division be, and rank from your preferred to your least preferred, and how should Firo's token emission be, which is what we're talking about. Bitcoin halving schedule, whether there should be a tail emission or not. So you can see my options here, right? Now, how are these votes tallied, right? So how ranked choice voting works is that there's several rounds, and what will happen is that if any option receives more than 50% support, right, that option wins, right? That means anything that goes above 50% of all the options automatically wins if that's the first one that goes through. Okay, obviously there cannot be two options more than 50% because that will be more than 100%. Now, what happens if, okay, let's say it's 30, 30, 20 or something like that, right? Which is like, let's say 30, 30, 20, 20, which means there's no majority winner, right? What happens then is that the one with the option with the least votes gets eliminated. And now what happens is that there'll be another round of voting, but the redistribution, the votes are then redistributed to the remaining candidates based on the second choice. So that means, like, for example, yes, my vote, let's say option number 1 is my rank 1, right? And then option number 2 is my rank 2. So now that I go into the second option, now my votes get shifted. That means in the second round, because there's no clear majority, my second rank votes also count to move my votes. Let's say my first choice got eliminated, right? Then okay, my vote is thrown out, but my second vote now counts to redistribute the votes to one of the other options that I like. And then this look again, okay, is there a clear winner? So this process is repeated a few times until one option has more than 50% of the votes. So I know it's a bit complicated, but trust us, it's a very well established system. We actually linked if you want to learn more, you can actually Google up ranked choice voting, and that will show you how this all works. Okay. Now, everyone can see how everyone has voted. All right, we can look at the results. Obviously, this isn't final. It only closes on the 1st of September. But you can see, like, round 1, not many people voted for 50% masternode, 57% minus, eliminated. And then, like, this is the second round, third round. So final winner for the moment is this, right? And obviously, as more people vote, this thing changes. But no, actually they should be like 42, but some people, I guess, didn't see the second poll. So make sure to vote for both polls, right? So yeah, I hope this is like, I hope you guys understand why we use, ranked choice voting instead of like a simple pick your favorite one and only one choice, or pick all the options that you want. At least in this case, you are able to express, even if your number one choice doesn't win, your second choice also has weight inside affecting the poll. So I think this is actually more fair and more, it's more accurate, provided that people understand how this ranked choice voting works. You can change your vote at any time. All right, and that will be reflected. The only time you cannot change the vote is after the poll is closed, right? So yeah, I hope everyone weighs in. We will follow the results of the poll. The core team will follow the results of the poll, and the more people to vote, obviously, the stronger the mandate is to change this vote. We hope to see more people voting. You have still about 11 more days. So please, this is a really important poll, and we hope that you show your opinion. One last thing is that there is a slight bug it does not affect the outcome, but it affects the display, where if you change your vote and stuff like that, you'll notice that when you expand, it goes different. It's actually showing 2 pages, but it's not showing the first page. So just to show you that, we're not making this up and having issues with it, we actually have lodged a complaint, right? And we have been, keeping everyone updated here, and they're working for a fix. But regardless of that, I just want to show you that we can always double check the votes by exporting this manually, and you will be able to see the raw numbers so that we cannot interfere. Discourse polls mean that even an admin, like I'm an admin, right? So I can edit like the text of this post, like I can edit the text of this post, but I cannot edit the polls. You see, there's no, the only thing I can do is close it. There's no way for me to edit the poll. So even as an admin, I cannot interfere with the results. If I want to do something, I have to remake the entire poll. The only thing that's kind of changing is because of this stupid display bug. I just want to let you know it's something that we are working on with the author of this polling vote here. Okay, so I know that was a lot. It's quite a complex thing. I hope that this answers some of your questions. And I know it's a topic that is some people feel very passionate about it, right? So, I think just make sure that when you express your opinion, you're polite. It's not personal. People have opinions. Let's stick to, being civil to each other. After all, we are all here to achieve the same thing, which is to build a great privacy preserving cryptocurrency for everybody, right? So I hope people remember that we're not here to destroy the project. We all love Firo. This is something that I've worked on since 2016. I personally want to see it work. A lot of you guys have been with us all this way. We want the best for the project, and we want long-term sustainability. So I hope people take this post seriously. Make sure your opinions are heard. Yes, the last thing is that to prevent people from simply registering all these accounts and voting, there is a minimum trust level whereby if you're your new user, you cannot vote, but you can kind of let's say you're active in Telegram and you've been around to the Firo community, just never signed up at the forum. You can apply in this particular trade, which calls for new members trust level upgrade request trade, where you post your username. People can see that you have been part of the Firo community for a while, and we will upgrade you, within a day or so. And yeah, all of this have been approved because we recognize most of them. Okay. So yeah, we're not trying to exclude anyone. Now, in the future, there has been some people who say we should have a minimum Firo requirement to do a vote, which we understand. Of course, some people are let's do coin voting. The more Firo you have, the more weight, which may not be entirely fair, because let's say it's basically saying the rich people have more say, right? Which a lot of people think that's the right way to do things, but we feel that it's important to involve as many community members to get broad support. And on top of that, someone who contributes a lot to the project but maybe only holds a 1,000 Firo or 100 Firo is not necessarily worse than someone who holds, let's say, 20 master nodes but has no interest in the project, and just it's a speculative thing, right? So we may introduce a minimum Firo collateral requirement to kind of have voting rights, but we don't intend to make it too high to kind of block people out, right? And at the end of the day, we want to hear your voice. We want to make this fair. And yeah, I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. Remember, you only have Yeah, it's on 1st of September. It's now on the 19th of August. Make sure to vote as soon as possible. Please, 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 please. We want to hear your voice as soon as possible. Thank you so much. And we have, if you have any questions, you can post them in the thread. You want our opinion, or you just want to express your viewpoints. All the forums, we don't censor stuff unless it's like really, really rude or spammy. That's the only requirement, right? Don't call people horrible things. Don't use bad language, but just be civil, and your stuff will be allowed. I don't think we've removed anybody's post yet. Okay, thank you very much. See you. Bye.